Christmas morning, your birthday. You tear off the wrapping paper and there it is. The one thing you've been dreaming of for months, the toy you've seen on TV, the game all your friends are talking about. In the 70s and 80s, toys weren't just objects. They were status symbols. They were keys to new worlds. They were the center of your universe. If you enjoy rediscovering the Britain we grew up in, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Because we're about to count down 15 toys and games that every British kid from the 70s and 80s begged for. Some were simple, some were revolutionary, and all of them hold a special place in our collective memory. Let's start with number 15. 15, the Space Hopper. That giant orange inflatable ball with horns. The Space Hopper was pure chaotic joy. You'd sit on it, bounce around the garden, fall off and do it all again. It had no purpose other than fun. It was awkward to control, impossible to steer, and utterly brilliant. Launched in the UK in 1969, it dominated the early 70s. It was a simple toy for a simpler time. 14. Weebles. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That slogan is burned into the brain of every 70s kid. These little egg-shaped figures with weighted bottoms were endlessly fascinating. You could push them, knock them, and they'd always right themselves. The playsets were legendary. The treehouse, the playground. Weebles were a lesson in resilience. And they were strangely satisfying to play with. 13. Kirby. A game that required nothing more than a ball and a street with two pavements. The aim was simple. Stand on one side of the road and throw the ball to hit the edge of the opposite curb, so it bounced back to you. 1 point for a hit, 2 points if you caught it. It was a game of pure skill, of angles, of judging the perfect throw. It was the unofficial sport of every British housing estate. 12. Fuzzy Felt. Before iPads, there was fuzzy felt, a simple flocked board and a box of colored felt shapes. You could create pictures, tell stories, and then pull it all apart and start again. It was quiet. It was creative. It was hours of imaginative play. From farmyards to ballerinas, there was a fuzzy felt set for everyone. It was one of the most loved British toys of its time. 11. Action Man. The ultimate action figure. Action Man wasn't a doll. He was a movable fighting man. He had scars, gripping hands, and eagle eyes that moved. He had uniforms, vehicles, and missions. He was a soldier, an adventurer, a hero. For British boys in the 70s and 80s, Action Man was the gold standard. He was tough, realistic, and inspired countless hours of imaginative play in bedrooms and back gardens across the country. 10. Subuteo. The game that turned your dining room table into Wembley Stadium. Tiny plastic footballers on weighted bases that you flicked with your finger. It was a game of incredible skill and patience. Setting up the pitch, arranging the players, the thrill of flicking the ball into the net. It was frustrating. It was addictive. And for football mad kids, it was the next best thing to being there. 9. The Rubik's Cube. It arrived in 1980 and took over the world. A simple-looking puzzle that was infuriatingly difficult. Everyone had one. Everyone tried to solve it. Most people failed, managing only to get one or two sides right before giving up in frustration. Books were published on how to solve it. Championships were held. The Rubik's Cube wasn't just a toy, it was a global phenomenon. 8. My Little Pony. They arrived in the early 80s and were an instant sensation. Colorful plastic ponies with long brushable manes and tails. Each one had a unique cutie mark on its flank. They were cute, collectible, and every little girl wanted them. The world of My Little Pony expanded to include playsets, cartoons, and a whole universe of colorful characters. 7. Cabbage Patch Kids. The toy that caused riots. Literally. When Cabbage Patch Kids were launched in the early 80s, the demand was so high that parents fought each other in shops to get one for Christmas. Each kid was unique, came with a birth certificate, and was adopted, not bought. They were soft, cuddly, and slightly strange looking. But that uniqueness was their appeal. Owning one was a badge of honor. 6. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. By the power of Grayskull. These muscular action figures defined boys' toys in the mid-80s. He-Man, Skeletor, Castle Grayskull. It was a world of fantasy, sci-fi, and epic battles. The figures had unique action features like battle damage armor and twist action waists. They were more than just toys. They were characters in an epic saga of good versus evil. 5. Transformers. Robots in disguise. Cars, trucks, and planes that transformed into heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons. The concept was genius. You got two toys in one. The transformations were often complex and satisfying. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Megatron, these names were legendary. Transformers weren't just a toy line, they were a cultural reset. 4. Sylvanian families. These miniature animal figures with their twee clothes and idyllic little houses were a sensation in the late 80s. Rabbits, bears, mice, all living in perfect pastoral harmony. The attention to detail was incredible. Tiny furniture, tiny food, tiny everything. It was a world of pure, gentle imagination that captivated children and collectors alike. 3. The Sinclair ZX Spectrum. For many kids in the 80s, this was their first taste of computing and gaming. That black box with the rubbery keys. You'd load games from a cassette tape, listening to that screeching, warbling sound for minutes, praying it would work. The graphics were basic, the games were often brutally difficult, but it was magic. It was the future. Right there in your bedroom. 2. British Bulldog. The playground game that was so dangerous, it was banned in most schools. A group of kids at one end of the playground, one or two bulldogs in the middle. The aim was to run from one end to the other without being caught. If you were caught, you became a bulldog too. It was brutal. It was chaotic. It was the ultimate test of speed and courage. 1. Lego, the king of all toys. Then, now, and forever. Lego wasn't just a toy. It was a system. A box of bricks was a box of pure potential. You could build anything. Houses, cars, spaceships. You could follow the instructions, or you could create your own world. It was creative, educational, and endlessly reusable. It crossed generations. Every kid had Lego. Every kid loved Lego. It was and still is the perfect toy. From the simple joy of a space hopper to the infinite possibilities of Lego, these toys and games were the fabric of our childhood. They taught us to be creative, to be competitive, to be patient. They were the focus of our hopes and dreams. And they live on in our memories long after the batteries have died and the pieces have been lost. So tell us, which toy did you want most? Which game did you play until the sun went down? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this video with anyone who remembers, and subscribe for more journeys into the Britain we grew up in. Because some toys are never forgotten.